Let's have a nuanced discussion about statues and white supremacy. If we're going to judge history solely in the context of black and white, then all the statues depicting individuals from the past should not and would not be standing. John Brown should be taken down because he slaughtered hundreds of cattle, owning a few tanneries. Vegans would want that, right? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would be taken down due to his extramarital affairs, right? Malcolm X would be taken down due to the fact that he was a drug dealer and a pimp before he became a civil rights leader, right? Nat Turner would be taken down because small children died during his rebellion, right? Margaret Sanger and Elizabeth Cady Stanton would be removed because they were both openly racist feminists, right? How about the statue of Tamerlane in Samarkand? I am willing to bet most of the liberals in the United States don't even know about the Turco-Mongol warlord who used to plaster his enemies alive in concrete and erect 30-foot-high statues or towers of them, consisting of the moving limbs of the partially plastered, starving, terrified people, and who erected pyramids from the skulls of his fallen foes, one pyramid containing 70,000 skeletal remains. The statue of a man who took out 5% of the Earth's population by the start of the 13th century, that is 17 to 20 million people, as many as Satanic Charlie Chaplin and Leopold of Belgium combined, should not be standing, right? But it still is. Think about what Tamerlane would have done if the seafaring technology was available for him to sail to the Western Hemisphere 100 years before Columbus did. Now, this is not me saying that we should keep all statues up because all people, even the good people, are bad. Quite the contrary. This is an argument for nuanced discussion, something that seems to be lacking in the American left these days. If you ask me my thoughts about removing Confederate generals, sure, I'm all for it. They were traitors. General Sherman did nothing wrong. How about Christopher Columbus? As an Italian and Puerto Rican, I should have the most say on this matter. Yes, I'm all for that too. How about Captain Cook and William McKinley out in Hawaii? Same thing. I'm all for it. In fact, Hawaii shouldn't even be a state considering there was no treaty of annexation. But that is a separate subject. How about Mount Rushmore? Yup. Overly excessive and disrespectful to the Lakota peoples. That should be decommissioned as well. How about a statue of Alexander Hamilton up in Harlem next to a house that he owned? I'm going to say that statue should be kept in place where it is. Personal feelings aside, I do not like Alexander Hamilton. I believe him to have been an elitist tied to mercantile interests who wanted Wall Street and foreign banks to rule the newly established United States. Not to mention, while he was a founder of the Manumission Society, working towards the gradual abolition of slavery, he did settle on the 3/5 compromise to make nice with Southern lawmakers who did not desire a separation from the crown without slavery intact. This is not lost on me and should not be lost on anyone else. However, next to DeWitt Clinton, for better or for worse, and certainly Alexander Hamilton is no worse than Tamerlane, Hamilton is probably the sole individual responsible for making New York as we know it today a multicultural center of finance, trade, and media. Taking account relating to the context of the location, Hamilton's statue should stay, but appropriately with an asterisk next to his name. Anywhere else, then yes, Hamilton should be promptly removed. We are in a time of great re-examination of culture and foundational figures. In many cases, their statues should be dashed away, but not in all cases. It is true that the United States is soaked in the blood of slavery, genocide, and imperialism, and we must and we will address those issues. This country did a whole lot of wrong since its inception. That should not be lost on anyone. However, it is also true that the United States was founded on the principle of separation from and the abolition of European Christian monarchies. For many American leftists, history begins in 1619. But for those of us who actually study history, we know that history begins way before that. And at the source of every human conflict for over 1,000 years almost always involves the same European Christian monarchies, including the Vatican. They have been behind and are still indirectly behind over 1 billion souls lost in the name of God and conquest. They have been behind millions who were trapped in the slave trade long before the United States came into existence. They have been behind the colonization of the Levantine region of the world, Asia, Africa, Australia. They have been directly and indirectly involved in almost every major global conflict, going all the way back to Charlemagne and even before that. European Christian monarchies are the most insidious and sanguine institutions on earth. While many of these monarchies have been officially disbanded over the past century, the long-embedded aristocracy tied to these European monarchies still very much exists today, and they still operate indirectly through banking and finance and nonprofits and other mediums of soft power. Why isn't there a push to tear down any of these white supremacist institutions that continue to perpetuate the evils of colonialism through its evolved form of neoliberalism? Oh, that's right, because they are bankrolling the subversion and erasure of nation states, because it suits their financial interests, and they weaponize social justice and environmental justice movements to divide and attack the proletariat, who are being leached by privatization and overvaluation of real estate. We don't talk about that. We talk about the aesthetic of white supremacy and not the structure of it, because we don't want to delegitimize the white supremacist institutions bankrolling the culture war to cover the sins of their past. So say what you will and think what you will about the founders of the United States. They were not perfect men. In fact, they were backward slave owners. Most of their statues should be taken down, but not all of them, on the premise of that one idea that no one should be bound to a Christian European monarchy or any aristocratic entities affiliated with them. Down with the crown, I say. May they go the way of Tsar Nicholas.